Kremlin spokesman has said that they are not interested in a short-term ceasefire. What should happen now?
It doesn't entirely surprise me that Russia's taking this stance.
Do you think that we should take from this that Vladimir Putin is not interested in peace, he's just interested in winning?
In the past, he's breached the deal. So if the deal is not defended with security guarantees, then he will breach it in due course at the moment of his choosing.
We've seen the pressure that Donald Trump has put on Zelenskyy.
Yeah.
Do you think he is prepared to put the same pressure on Vladimir Putin?
I genuinely believe that he wants that lasting peace.
Do you trust him?
Yes.
Prime Minister, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, being on the Newsagents. Speaking at the Labour conference back in September, your health secretary said that another top-down reorganisation was the very last thing that he wanted to do. Do you accept that that is precisely what you've just announced in the abolition of NHS England?
No, I don't. I'm talking about something very straightforward. You've got NHS England, which has a team of communications officers, and you've got the department that's got a team of communication officers. NHS England got a team of strategists and policy workers, you've got the equivalent in the department. That is, when you've got to make money go as far as it can in the health service, that just does not make sense. And what it does is free up the money to go to the front line, which in my view is where it should be. I also think that most of the change that we're bringing about in the health service is driven from the front line. I'm really struck by what the front line have to say. I did this when I was chief prosecutor, I'm doing it again. And we go to elective hubs, for example, where these hospitals that they set up, which are basically factories for operations. They're really brilliant. And I've been talking to the staff there, and they have lots of ideas about change that we're driving through. But taking out duplication, which doesn't make sense, is not top down, it's just basic common sense.
Okay, so when will this happen and how much will it save?
Well, we'll start on it straight away. We're going to need legislation. It will immediately save on all the duplication and reorientate that to the front line, which is a very good thing to do. It has to be seen
but
alongside...
have you got a number?
Well, we've got to, alongside the other change that we're bringing through on waiting lists, where only yesterday I was, for the missions that we're driving through, the things that matter in the plan for change, I hold a stock take every other month, because as you know, the big difficulty in government is driving things across different departments, going through those figures yesterday, looking at what each trust, each hospital is doing on operations and making the changes. And you know, I'm really pleased, I don't want to tempt fate, but we're now on month 5 of reducing waiting lists. We've got through 2 million extra appointments in 7 months when we thought it would take a year. So these changes are making a difference. I'm conscious we've got to do more, we've got to do further and faster, but they are beginning to make a change. And in politics, particularly at the moment, people need to feel the change, because there's a bigger piece here about the disconnect between politics and people, and the feeling that politics is no longer a force for good. Part of that is driven by people thinking promises are made that aren't kept. I promised 2 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. We've now delivered it. That is a really important proof point.
But briefly, Prime Minister, you spoke in your speech about the size of the state. You've talked about the fact in your Telegraph article that it was 12,000 bigger in terms of headcount than it was before the referendum. Do you think simply that the state should be smaller by the end of this Parliament? Fewer people should be working for it?
Yes, I think it should be smaller, more agile. It should be active. And this is the political difference. By and large, Conservatives don't believe in the state. They think the free market should do the work. That's why they think the state should be smaller. I believe in the state. I think it should be active. I think it should be sleeves rolled up. It should be on the pitch making a difference. But at the moment, what we've got is an oversized and underpowered state, the complete opposite of the active state that I believe would make a big difference.
Prime Minister, the other theme of your speech was the era of uncertainty in which we live. In the last hour, while you were on stage, Kremlin spokesman has said that they are not interested in a short-term ceasefire. What is your reaction? What should happen now?
Well, firstly, keep our focus on a lasting and secure peace in Ukraine, which is what we all want. It doesn't entirely surprise me that Russia's taking this stance. They've made it pretty clear. They've put it in lights a number of times over.
Has Donald Trump had too much faith in Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think progress was made on Tuesday. And I always felt that and hoped that out of Tuesday, that would put the ball in the Russian court, if you like, where the pressure would come on Russia. That has now happened. That is a good thing because Russia's the aggressor. Russia is the country where there have been previous deals and agreement has not honoured those, and we know that Putin has ambitions that are barely disguised. So I'm not surprised that we've got to this point. What we need to do now is work with our allies, work with the US, work with Ukraine, and obviously I've got this meeting on Saturday to bring a number of leaders together to see what further progress that we can make. But lasting secure peace with the sovereignty and security of Ukraine, but it has to be a peace where the deal is defended, because we've had a deal before and it's not being maintained because Russia just breaches the line.
And Prime Minister, do you think that we should take from this, the world should take from this, that Vladimir Putin is not interested in peace, he's just interested in winning?
Well, he's being put to the test, and he is saying, and he's said before, that he doesn't want security guarantees in relation to the deal. Well, that tells you something. If you don't intend to breach the deal, you wouldn't have too many problems with guarantee for the deal.
And the Russian foreign...
And we know that in the past he's breached the deal. So his reaction reinforces my strong belief that if the deal is not defended with security guarantees, then he will breach it in due course at the moment of his choosing.
Is there anything left that's worth talking to Vladimir Putin about? As far as
yes. I mean, if there's going to be a lasting peace, then obviously it's right that the US talk to the Russians, that President Trump speaks to Putin. That has to happen. But we need to be clear about what the terms of this are, which is a lasting and secure peace with a sovereign Ukraine that can actually make its own decisions about its defence capability.
Prime Minister,
and a secure Ukraine.
We've seen the pressure that Donald Trump has put on Zelenskyy.
Yeah.
Do you think he is prepared to put the same pressure on Vladimir Putin in terms of sanctions, whatever?
Well, I think he's already indicated in some of his remarks in the last 24 hours that he's prepared to do so. And look, I've spent quite a bit of time with President Trump face to face. I've spoken to him a lot on the phone recently. I genuinely believe that he wants that lasting peace. I do think that's his objective. He knows what's needed to get there. And it's in all of our interest to ensure that we do whatever we can to bring about that outcome.
Do you trust him?
Yes. We work with the US on a daily basis. Our security,
you completely trust him?
Look, our security, our defence, our intelligence sharing is closer than any other country in the world. This is not a hypothetical question. This is a daily operational question.
So you still consider him to be a reliable ally?
And so of course we trust the US. We are working with them on defence and security and intelligence sharing every single day of the week, 24/7. And we've been doing that for decades. And this is not a casual affair. It's not a casual issue. It is about the safety and security of our country.
Can I ask you why Donald Trump is getting a second state visit?
Well, because the King has invited him.
Prime Minister, on the Prime Minister's advice?
Well, he's done something which no president has ever done before.
Well, he's been impeached twice. He's got a criminal conviction. He tried to overturn an election. He slapped tariffs on us. He's trying to annex Canada. I mean, I can see what's in it for Donald Trump. What's in it for us?
They're our closest ally. Our defence and security and intelligence is bound up one with the other. We have enormous amounts, billions and billions of pounds worth of trade between our two countries. We fought wars together. We faced challenges together.
No elected politician has ever been offered a second state visit.
No two countries work as closely as our two countries. The special relationship isn't just a phrase that's sort of useful in history books and biographies. It is the lived experience of how we keep our country safe.
But Prime Minister, you will be aware of the threats that Donald Trump is making to Canada. The incoming Prime Minister of Canada has talked about President Trump wanting to ruin the Canadian way of life, of even annexing Canada. The King is the head of state in Canada. He's the King of Canada. Aren't you putting him in a deeply embarrassing and difficult position by inviting him for a state visit?
Well, let's be clear. I'm not inviting for a state visit. The King is.
The government invites Prime Minister.
But look, on Canada, they are an incredibly close and important ally of this country, which they have been for a very, very long time. The King is head of state. It's it's his Prime Minister. in Canada. We've just obviously got an incoming Prime Minister. And I've made that absolutely clear in relation to our position on Canada.
We did a live show in Edinburgh on Tuesday night. I was really struck by the
Doubtless
question.
you were disappointed you couldn't come
And
along.
I'm sure next time you'll come, honestly, we'll invite you. Look, we did a live show, had a question from Mark, a father of a 15-year-old boy. He said, my son celebrated his 15th birthday 2 days ago. In 3 years' time, what is the likelihood of his 18th birthday present being conscripted into the British Army to fight on the battlefield against Russia or someone else? I mean, what would you have, if you were on stage with us that night, what would you have said?
Nobody's talking about conscription. I don't think that's ever crossed my lips. So what I'm talking about is making sure that as European countries, we play our full part in the European element of any security guarantees if there's a deal. That has to be supported with the US as a backstop, something I've been discussing with President Trump. But we're not talking about conscription. We're talking about the best use of our capabilities, which are manifold, by the way.
Do you understand why people are worried?
Well, what I want to do is to ensure that we keep the peace, that we are not drawn into conflict. But in order to keep the peace, you have to have a strong security guarantee. You do not keep the peace with no guarantee. That is exactly what happened. There was a deal in place, it was called Minsk, and it's been breached. So making the same mistake again doesn't seem to me to make sense. So, and President Zelenskyy is very alive to this, which is we tried that one, which is an agreement without a guarantee, and it didn't work, and we've now had 3 years of war, which has impacted people in this country through the cost of living, through energy prices, and so much more. If you want peace, you have to prepare for peace, and in this case that means being forward-leaning on security guarantees. Exactly what the guarantee looks like, the layering of it, the technical operation of it, is obviously subject to a lot of discussion, but nobody's talking about conscription.
Does it keep you up at night, Prime Minister, at the moment, all of this?
No, it doesn't, but I'm acutely aware of the significance of a decision of a Prime Minister to deploy our forces, our personnel, into any arena, in whatever form it may take. I'm deeply aware of that, and I take it extremely seriously. But in the end, the most important duty of the Prime Minister is to keep the country safe and secure, and I take that duty extremely seriously.
Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you.
The Newsagents. This is a Global Player original podcast.